Everyone. Thanks for coming. We're going to get started in a few minutes. And now that you all can chat, please feel free to introduce yourselves and the county or region or land that you're calling in from. And we're going to get started, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to the SPI State Informational Webinar for this year's state application cycle. We're excited to have you all here today. My name is Janine. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm a program manager and proud SPI State alum. I was on the Reproductive Health Rights and Justice team, and I'm calling in from Kumi Island, otherwise known as San Diego. I'll pass it on to my co-presenter, Elizabeth, to introduce herself.
Buenas tardes. Yes, tardes now. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Ayala, pronouns she, her. I am an alum from the local program, but leading the state program with Janine. I'm calling in from Luiseño, Coahuila, and Serrano territory of Riverside in SoCal. And so glad to see everyone online. I'll pass it back to you, Janine.
So first, some logistics. We're going to reserve questions for the Q&A at the end of this webinar. So feel free to ask any questions that you have in the Q&A box through the presentation so they don't get lost in the chat. And we'll save that for the end of the session. And lastly, please note that this webinar is being recorded, and so the slides and the recording will be made available to you after this session, so no need to write everything down. I'm going to go over today's agenda. We've allotted an hour for this webinar, and so today we'll share background information on Women's Foundation California. We'll introduce you to the Dr. Beatriz Maria Solís Policy Institute, or SPI for short, formerly known as WPI, the Women's Policy Institute. We'll share information about the structure of the program, and then I'm excited today we'll have a current fellow, Stephanie Flores. He was here with us to speak about their experience in the SPI. Then we'll go over the application process, and last but not least, we'll have the Q&A portion where you can ask foundation staff as well as our fabulous fellow Stephanie any questions that you have about the program. And we're going to get into it. Women's Foundation California is a statewide publicly supported foundation dedicated to investing in, training, and connecting community leaders to advance gender, racial, and economic justice by centering the experience and expertise of the communities most impacted by systemic injustice. We're defined by a feminist, intersectional, multi-issue, movement-building approach, and our core values as an organization are community justice and well-being. We raise money to provide grants to community-led organizations, train community-based leaders through our renowned Solís Policy Institute, and foster a community of advocates, donors, policymakers, grant makers, academics, and many others through convenings to share knowledge and strengthen the social justice movement in California. Today, we'll focus on the train component of the Women's Foundation strategy, but if you have questions about other aspects of our work, please feel free to reach out to us. The foundation launched the Solís Policy Institute, then known as the Women's Policy Institute, in 2003. We spent more than 2 years conducting research, talking with stakeholders, and designing this nationally recognized program. In our research, we identified the need for community-based organizations and leaders to influence policy in order to ensure that progressive change was happening in California. The Solís Policy Institute, the flagship program of Women's Foundation California, will be starting the 22nd year with the 2025 class and is widely recognized as one of the most successful policy advocacy training programs in the U.S. I'm going to pass it on to Elizabeth to talk more about the Solís Policy Institute.
So each year, The Policy Institute trains 20 to 25 individuals who are selected to participate in the program. So this is a year-long intensive fellowship that teaches community-based leaders how to be effective advocates and create tangible policy changes in their communities. So to date, SPI has yielded a tremendous amount of success in our state program. Between both state and local, we've trained over 600 leaders in public policy since 2003. And in terms of state, over 70 bills have been worked on by our fellows that made it through both houses of the legislature onto the governor's desk. And over 50 of those bills have been signed into law. So 3 years ago, we changed our name to the Dr. Beatriz Maria Solís Institute in honor of the late SPI Solís and in partnership with the California Endowment. Our new Solís Policy Institute celebrates B's commitment to the championing and the leadership of self-identifying women and girls of color and gender-expansive people from across the state. Renaming the Institute honors her legacy and also gives us greater alignment to our gender-inclusive work at the foundation. So the fellows who participate in the Solís Policy Institute identify with a broad range of gender expressions and identities, and we are really grateful that the Institute's new name will be a more accurate reflection of our community, our values, and our people. Next slide. So the SPI's theory of change rests on the belief that by bringing individuals who experience gender, racial, and economic injustice into the policy process, and it is intentionally contributing to social justice movements by ensuring that the policy arena is representative of communities most impacted, and this will change the culture and shape of policy. So as an organization, based on gender justice, we recognize that gender-based discrimination and violence disproportionately impact transgender people. And so our goals do include increasing the number of non-binary and genderqueer people, and as well cisgender and transgender women and transgender men to be involved in the policy arena and to increase the number of policies, ergo the state bills, that reflect the needs and realities of Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, immigrant communities, low-income communities, and rural communities. So please review our website for more information about our TGI, that is transgender, gender variant, and intersex values. So we aim to strengthen the leadership, advocacy, and public policy knowledge of our participants so that these skill sets can be applied to all levels, right? Local, state, and national levels of government, and to support participants as they develop these skills. In so doing, we are also strengthening links between grassroots organizations and then the policymakers and encouraging lasting relationships amongst grassroots leaders within and between movements across California. Therefore, the Institute is recruiting, right, for teams across different issues. SPI exists. Oh, next slide. I think that's it. SPI exists because our communities have been excluded purposely from the policy process by design, and because structural inequities are embedded in government. So the program's primary objective is to train participants on how to create progressive policy changes, but within the current legislative system. And we do recognize as a value and within the practical practices of the Institute that ultimately the policy process itself has to change. So we highlight this because the fellowship recognizes that the policy process is not always a welcoming place. It is based on white, heterosexual, mostly cisgender male norms and can discount community voice. It does discount community voices. So we do strive to select trainers, speakers, panelists who reflect the diversity in SPI and in the greater California, who also reflect our values. And but there are times, sometimes days, when you won't see our community's diversity reflected in the folks in front of the room or with those you interact with at the Capitol. So we are committed to changing that within and throughout SPI. And so the more of us with policy advocacy skills we believe, the more of us who can train others, the more of us who can be in those decision-making places of power.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And really, we have, numbers in supporting all of this. And after conducting a 10-year retrospective assessment of the SPI, we found that besides the SPI fellows trained and bills signed into law, our impact is much broader when one takes our alums' ongoing efforts into account. The success of dozens upon dozens of bills and local policy advocacy projects can be traced to the efforts of alums who have continued to work in policy advocacy long after their time with SPI. In fact, 76% of alums are still engaged in policy advocacy post-SPI. 75% of such alums report greater advocacy engagement post-SPI, and 92% of these alums attribute this increase in advocacy to SPI. And when you're a fellow, you're going to enter a network of over 600 plus alums all over the nation continuing to do policy work and are part of this network as we continue to push for progressive policy in California and beyond. There are 5 key things to know about SPI as you work on the application process. The first is the SPI is team-based. We place accepted applicants into teams of 5 people by issue area. So it's important that you come into SPI with an ability to work well with others, compromise, and work out differences quickly. The policy process is based on a very strict legislative timeline that will push you and your team to move your bill forward. Second, the SPI revolves around an experiential learning and a learning while doing approach. This is a training program, but the bill you choose is real. Once your team has chosen a bill, you and your teammates will do everything related to it. You'll find the author, work with the author's staff, conduct the research on your bill idea, and do all the lobbying. The bill belongs to your team, and you own it. We know that the fellows who feel they've learned the most were able to get their bill to the governor's desk. Their bill was movable. We want the bills to move as far along in the legislative process as possible for your own learning. And remember that your team may choose a policy idea that is not a priority for you or your agency or organization. The program requires you to still work on your team's bills, so make sure that you have a conversation with your organization, your supervisor, your agency, knowing that they must give you paid staff time to fully participate in SPI, regardless if the bill aligns with your organization. Third, the SPI fosters individual leadership development. One of our priorities to help our fellows grow their leadership skills is eliminating self-limiting thoughts and behaviors, step out of their comfort zone, and increase personal agency. Our alums overwhelmingly feel that they grew more confident as a result of their participation in SPI. Fourth, the SPI operates with an intersectional framework, meaning our cohorts engage in conversations about anti-oppressive policymaking, power, gender identities, and more. Our fellows are expected to participate in these conversations as we believe this is integral to creating policy that empowers our communities. We're committed to responding to and prioritizing Black, Indigenous, people of color, and trans leadership. So the 2025 year will focus on ensuring that we create policy that integrates an anti-racism and transgender justice lens. Fifth, the SPI emphasizes cross-movement building. One of the beauties of the SPI is that it brings together members of various social movements, many of which have been siloed for decades. Fellows take part in a fair amount of inter-team work, which allows for each team to incorporate ideas grounded in other social justice perspectives. You should expect to learn, grow, and be pushed by your fellow SPIers. Cross-movement building is an integral part of the Women's Foundation strategy for building broader and more interconnected social justice networks in California. Now to go into the logistical details, and again, you will get access to the slides and the recording after this webinar. To go over the Institute's schedule, the SPI includes 4 training retreats that are 2 to 4 days long. The first and fourth retreat are in person in Sacramento, with a lobbying day in person in Sacramento. Retreat 2 and 3 are online. The retreats include lectures and time to work on your bill and are essential to the fellows' learnings. These retreats also give you a space to meet some of the most important players in the legislative process. advocates, staffers, legislators, government employees, and lobbyists. And these retreats are exhausting. Do not plan on doing other work during these retreats and tell your supervisor that you will not be able to work during their retreats. We recommend you apply only if you can make this commitment, given how intense the retreats are and how critical they are to your bill, to getting your bill across through the process. Please check the retreat and seminar dates to make sure you're able and available to participate in each retreat for the entire retreat and each seminar for the entire seminar, and block those days off in your calendar before you apply in case you're accepted into the program. We require transparency about your attendance as part of the interview process, and specifically in-person and virtual attendance. These dates are on our SPI application webpage, and as we mentioned earlier, we will make these PowerPoint slides available as well. And we may add a seminar or two depending on the needs of the class, and we will provide you with as much advance notice as possible, as well as record them. I'll pass it on to Elizabeth to talk a little bit more about what do we mean by hybrid.
Yeah, just to confirm, right? So applicants know that the Policy Institute includes space organized by the foundation where you will spend times in trainings hosted by the foundation. So that's in person and virtual. And then you will also be conducting meetings with legislators. So you should know first that the nowadays elected officials, their staff and offices are typically conducting their business in person. So then this means that a lot of your interfacing as you search for a bill author, for example, will require time in Sacramento. And then after that, time in Sacramento for the lobbying and the stewardship of the bill. So then the other thing you should know is that in the Solís Policy Institute, the fellowship is a mix of both in-person and virtual events. And applicants should know that all retreats and seminars are mandatory. And at this time, there is no capacity to host Zoom participation into the in-person events. So the in-person events are mandatory, and therefore that means travel to Sacramento. All of our programming will be in the city of Sacramento. And I'll pass it back to you, Janine.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And to get a little more in detail about what does the year look like, what are we doing during these retreats? In retreat 1, which is the first week of October, you will spend time getting to know each other, getting to know us and your mentor. We'll discuss the SPI, begin teaching you the policy process, and focusing on the legislative process. You'll meet with your team and experts in the issue area and decide on 2 to 3 policy project areas. We'll also include sessions that reflect our intersectional values, such as examining dominant culture and transgender, gender variant, and intersex justice trainings. Retreat 2, which will be virtual in December, is where you'll finalize your policy project and begin to look for a potential author. You will continue to integrate a gender, racial, and economic lens into your projects as necessary, and we will continue with trainings that reflect our intersectional framework. A lobbying day or a bill pitching day will be on January 9th in Sacramento, where ideally teams will begin pitching bill ideas in December, but we also have set aside an organized single day of travel to Sacramento to secure the bill authors or to try again. By retreat 3 in March, which is virtual, you get ready for hearings and we prepare you to do a testimony, including a mock hearing. And we will also have a public speaking trainer who works with you on your testimony. You'll also be working on your communications and advocacy strategies. Retreat 4, which is in May and held in Sacramento, is where you will prepare pitches for the legislative reception that we host at the California Museum, networking tips, opportunities for in-person meetings at the Capitol, and how to prepare for the second house. Between each of the retreats, you'll have weekly team calls, be required to read materials and view supplemental lessons, and participate in 9 seminars, in addition to conducting significant team and individual work to advance your bill. And we'll go over any questions again at the end. Now I'm excited to get to pass the mic to our fellow Stephanie Flores, who's on the Criminal Justice Reform team and is part of the SC Justice group. I'm going to read Stephanie's bio before having her introduce herself. Stephanie Flores is a mother who refuses to let her daughters grow up in an unjust world. She is an abolitionist. Stephanie is a daughter to hardworking Mexican immigrant parents. She grew up in San Jose, California. Stephanie is a proud sister of the SE Justice Group and serves as one of their 2023 campaign regional team leads. She is an activist. Stephanie studied communications and minored in gender and women's studies at San Francisco State University. She now resides in Merced, California. Stephanie loves dancing salsa, likes cooking with her babies, enjoys nature and gardening, and adores her cat Ariel. Now I'll pass it on to Stephanie to introduce herself, talk more about the team, and a little bit about their bill, and to share more about her experience with SPI, her favorite parts and the most challenging parts. And again, Stephanie will be on the whole time, so if you have any questions specific to Stephanie or the fellow experience, please drop them in the Q&A function. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to you, Stephanie. Oh, Claire, do you mind allowing Stephanie to unmute or opening that up?
Yeah, Stephanie, can you hear
Oh,
me? Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. I am unmuted. Now I just want to be able for you all to see me if it's possible. Or should I just speak?
Yeah, hey Stephanie, I made you a co-host, so you should be able to oh, there you are.
Does everybody see me? I hope so.
yes,
I'm
we
so
can. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. I'm so glad to be here. Honestly, it's such an honor to get the opportunity to speak about my experience with SPI. As Janine mentioned, I am the most recent alumni of 2024 SPI. The criminal just as part of the criminal justice reform team. We are pushing the bill AB 2527, author Barbara Kahan. It's regarding dignified care for incarcerated pregnant people, and it's honestly a very dear topic for me because I have personal experience in with being incarcerated and pregnant at the same time. So I'm actually really excited about the bill. It's going great. I'm learning so much. Honestly, I just want to say, and I'm gonna say right now, this is honestly the best thing that has ever happened to me career-wise. I've had great opportunities. I have great mentors and people, that have my back, that have literally brought me into this work randomly, because I actually used to work with children. I used to do I used to be an after school rec leader for kindergarten students, and I love children, I love education, but something just brought me into this type of work. There's a reason why we're all here, and I just want to say, you will never find this type of training anywhere. You go to school, you go to college, you can be at work and never really get this type of training. It's incredible how much you learn from public speaking, TGI inclusivity, anti-racist policy work, so much all around. It's amazing. So not only that, you will never get this type of support from mentors and the people that you're working with, Elizabeth, Janine, Sinclair, everybody that's here, the whole Women's Foundation, literally, it's so beautiful to know that so many people will support you and help you, make this world a better place. So yeah, with that being said, my experience has been amazing. Of course, there's challenges, when you work in a team, teamwork is always it has its challenges. Of course, there's so many different values, so many different opinions, everybody works differently. It was hard working in a team, only in the aspect where you have to try to figure out everybody's schedule and come together at that one time, or meet at this specific day. People have lives. I have children, I have a family too, I have my cat that I love, and it gets hard, but I do want to say that it's not impossible. When I applied for the fellowship, I had just had my second daughter, and she was only 1 month old. And the organization I work with, SE, was, really encouraging me to do this. And I was like, at first I was like, what is this? Like, I don't even know what's going on, But when I applied and after I got, nominated to participate, I was like so excited. Like I couldn't even explain how excited I was. I'm telling you, it's worth it. All the work. Like you figure out a way to do it, like you can do it, because I did it with a brand new newborn baby, a 6-year-old daughter who's very needy, she's amazing. Like, and you find your schedule, you find your rhythm, you know what I mean? You learn your team members, you really really get to be able to grow, like you increase your ability to actually work with people, because you're going to work with people regardless anywhere you are, you know what I mean? Like no matter what type of work you do. So it's really amazing to be able to get this type of training here. You learn about bill pitching, which is something I had never done before. It was amazing to learn about all the assembly members and senators and the difference between both houses, you know what I mean? All the different districts. Like one goal that I had coming into this was like, okay, I want to get to know these people, like the district offices, like I want to know who is representing each district, and I want to know what their passions are, and honestly, like I can't even believe it. And I don't even know, like if I even really sat down and started writing down every single person, you just learn these things. Like they just come to you and you're just like, oh my God, you start recognizing like legislators and like people like on the street. Like I go to this coffee shop down the street. I'm in Merced right now. And I never knew that literally right across the street above these stairs is where, Senator Caballero, Ana Caballero, it's her office. And I'm like, oh my God, like, like these are people like so powerful, and that like, it's such a small world that it actually like just being in this fellowship really humbles you, like you really start looking at things differently, like like you want to work together. It's amazing. So teamwork is challenging, but at the end it has its perks. It's amazing when you actually go lobby visits, you do lobby visits with your team, and it's like it's kind of intimidating, because at first my team wanted, when we first did our lobby visits, they wanted to break up, right? And they were like, let's just do different teams, and you can go over here. And I was a little intimidated at first. I was like, oh, I'm very confident and I can do things, but my team just randomly decided to not break up, and just going into the offices and getting to know like the staffers and everybody. As a team, we were just like going like amazing. Like one person would say something, the other person, without even like, we didn't even give each other cues. Like we just knew when to jump in. Like it was so amazing, because it's like, that's your team. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing to be able to be part of something like that. And not just like it. And not only that, like this fellowship, it's not just something, it's bigger than you. You know what I mean? It's the whole California. Like we're changing law. We're changing people's lives for the better. It's a truly, truly an unbelievable experience, and I recommend it. Don't be discouraged with all the mandatory retreats, and you have to be there. Like you will definitely be supported. Like just believe in yourself and believe that, like, and know that the SPI has you, the Women's Foundation. Like it just doesn't hurt to like ask for anything. Like they're just so amazing. So I think that the biggest challenge working as the in the criminal justice team was only like it, like when it comes to this type of policy work, it was like just understanding your sponsors, understanding your allies, and like how it's going to work, like your co-authors, and you want to really understand before you ask someone to be your co-sponsor of your bill. Like you know the way they want to really be involved. You want to get a clear understanding on what they expect, what their values are, what your values are, what you're willing to compromise and whatnot. And you know what? It doesn't hurt to like express how you feel. It doesn't mean like to go against the grain is not a bad thing. You know what I mean? It just means that like you're working together. Like it's different when like everybody agrees on something and nobody ever disagrees. And it's always like, okay, yeah, I'm the person that will always have my opinion. And and it's hard, when you have your co-sponsors that have very different opinions, and you're just like trying to work with them. At the end of the day, we all have that common goal. That's what one of my mentors said. They said they will always support you, and I believe that. Like, I just want to say, like, it's amazing. The best part about it, this fellowship, is the people you meet, is the connections that you build, the friendships that you have. Like, at the end of this, like, I know that I will always be able to like reach out to someone from SPI, like Janine, Sinclair, or Elizabeth, even, you know, my mentors like Lizzie and Alicia, and I love them so much, and I respect them wholeheartedly. I think they're everything. You learn so much, honestly. Like, it's so beautiful. It's a very humbling experience that you really cannot pass up. Like, you need to apply right now. Like, I promise you, like, you just do it, and it'll change your whole life. I promise you. So with that being said, I just want to open it up for pass it back over to Janine or anybody if there's any questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. I do have a question. If you could speak more about your first hearing experience, how that was for you and the team for you to testify in front of a committee, the Assembly Public Safety Committee hearing.
Oh, so you guys seen me, huh? No, I'm just kidding. But okay. So I had been in these type of spaces before. Okay. Being at the Capitol is a whole different world. You guys are gonna just get the training you need to walk up in there and be so confident and do what you gotta do. It's gonna be amazing. Don't worry about it. But when you're actually like asked to do a hearing, testimony for a hearing, that's a whole different ballpark. My experience, I actually had experience back in April to be a to provide a testimony for the Assembly Public Safety hearing. And at first, I was a little nervous. I was nervous because, you just sit. It's like, a a room, and then there's just a row, circular row of all the assembly members, and you're right in the middle, like, just, talking. And um once you're there, I'm telling you, you get all the training you need. Like, everybody kind of like prepares you. You have 5 minutes exactly. So you, like I said, you get really great public speaking training. I remember Dr. Shayna, like, you go over what you're gonna say. Like, they help you out before you go up, so it's not as intimidating or scary. But I was a little nervous, and I did. It was a different experience because that morning my child got sick, and she was just not having it, and she said, you know what, Mom, I'm not leaving you. Like, literally, like, right before, every time I tried, leaving her with somebody, she would cry and yell, and I was just like, so I actually had to do the public safety hearing with my baby in my arms. And it was just really funny because everybody can look this up. Okay, you can look it up. And my baby, I wish I can drop a picture here, but my baby just looks at all the assembly members, and she just starts smiling, and I'm like, you literally were just crying like 5 seconds ago. And but she was just so good, because she is good. As long as she's on me, like, I can do things. So I'm just giving my speech and doing what I do, and like, it was so powerful. Like, it was honestly so thrilling. And you have the assembly member with you, so typically, like, when you do your bill pitching, you don't really like meet with the actual assembly members or senators. You actually meet with their staffers. So it's different. Like, when there is an assembly member, like a representative who actually, like, you have that connection with, or you talk to. Like, I had never spoke to assembly member Barbara Khan. She just sat next to me while I'm doing my speech, and it was just so amazing for her to like lean in and be like, and just tell me, like, honestly, you did amazing. And she just encouraged me, and I'm like, thank you. It was crazy because one of the assembly members, I'm not gonna mention who, just started, like, he just looked at me, asked me a really sincere question. I was not even ready for it. I was not ready for it. So when he asked me the question, like, I responded like very sincerely, and it was amazing to be able to give my testimony, to express, what we worked on, like what we found, and at the end, we had pretty much a unanimous pass. Like we had 7 ayes, meaning yeses. There was only, I think, one person that didn't vote. And yeah, it was amazing. Like it's so cool. So you learn about the process, about committees and how they work. You want to have a testimony, personal testimony, witness. You also want to have a professional witness to back up, everything that you're trying to like pass. You have your assembly member right next to you, encouraging you, being that like expert as well. So don't even worry. Like it's amazing if you get that opportunity to do that. Like that was a once in a lifetime opportunity that I was able to do, and I will never forget it. It was amazing.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And it was amazing to watch because, again, all these hearings are recorded. They are up on the website. And so it was also so powerful for us following along to be able to watch that and see you carrying that, especially with the testimony, with the bill so close to you and to your family. So thank you again for sharing that. Again, Stephanie we're going to go back to some of the technical slides and then we'll do Q&A in the last 10 minutes and Stephanie is going to stick around. So if you have questions specific for Stephanie, drop them in the Q&A and she'll get to speak more on her experience. We're going to pivot back to go on to some of the more technical pieces around the application and I'll pass it to Elizabeth to speak more on who is eligible to apply to SPI.
I do want to give shout out to Stephanie. So for potential applicants, one, we do want, there's professional experience, but there's also in the application, you could talk about life experience, right? Like when it comes to these issues, both are valid. And so I just want to highlight that your team, Stephanie, supported you to center the stories that directly impact those who will be impacted by the bill. 2, that not everyone will testify at a hearing. And so I hope that doesn't freak everyone out because you don't have to sit in front of a row of senators or something like that. And also just know that there's not always the opportunity for everyone to do a testimony, or it might be more appropriate for someone from your agency, for example, to go with you to Sacramento to give that testimony. So just giving that context. So looking back at the slides in terms of who is eligible, so SPI accepts non-binary and genderqueer people, cisgender and transgender women, and transgender men. And while we work hard to make sure that correct pronouns are used by fellows, trainers, and policymakers, sometimes we can't control when someone misgenders someone else. And so we just want to acknowledge that and recognize that no place is 100% safe. And we're striving to be that brave space that is welcoming, affirming, and has procedures in place for when harm does occur. We also, so another thing to know is we accept individuals living or working in any part of California and that works in a community-based or nonprofit setting and has the full support of your employer and supervisor. If you are not currently employed by a community-based or nonprofit organization, please email the SPI program after the seminar to seek advice about your eligibility. We also have a frequently asked questions section on the website that might answer some of that questions for you, or that one question that addresses this and the answers might answer it for you. If not, again, please email us. If you're planning on going to school or know you will be changing jobs during the SPI year, we do note that it might not be a good year to apply just because we can't, you might not have the guarantee right from your employer or a new employer in the participation, which is intensive in this program. And so then as a part of your application, part of what's going to happen is there's going to be a doc where there's a full list of participation requirements where both you and your supervisor are asked to sign on to those applicant requirement agreements. So do yourself and the program and your organization a favor. Don't underplay the requirements listed. And then I can talk about the cost of the fellowship. So thanks to the generous support of many funders, the fellowship is free and it is fully subsidized by the Women's Foundation of California. So the first retreat is in Sacramento. Retreat 2 and 3 will be virtual. And then the 4th retreat will be back in Sacramento. And so we will fund the costs for you to travel. We will pay for the lodging, etc. And so the other is the program funds a mentor for each team. And then each team is given a team fund, or that is a stipend, for costs related to work on your bill between retreats. So for example, when Stephanie traveled to the hearing about her team's bill, we supported that travel. And then lastly, if you have children, we provide childcare reimbursements to help cover the cost of childcare during the time you will need to be in retreats, both in person and for the hours of the virtual training program. There's also a question in the frequently asked questions talking about having new children in the family, similar to what Stephanie had in her sharing. And then we can talk about the application process, and I hope to answer the questions for the first question posed about the application process. So there's a website, there's a page on our website about the application listing the dates, etc., with the frequently asked questions. And then you will be taken to an online application form using SurveyMonkey Apply. And that platform will direct you through, you'll create an account, and then you will need to fill out information about yourself as an individual and organizational questions. You will be also prompted to upload a one-page resume. And then there's that doc I referred to earlier where both you and your employer sign off. You will need to submit the signed applicant requirements agreement, and it's available for download already. So you and your supervisor must both initial those requirements, as I stated previously. And then one of the application tasks is individual narratives, which entails answering a series of questions that you can find again in the SurveyMonkey Apply platform. And please refer to the application for more specifics. And then something I want to know is that one, we include a request from your supervisor to write about why your participation in SPI will benefit your role and your organization. So please make sure when you include the statement from the supervisor or organization that you write the name of the individual making the statement, the title. And so we also ask that you describe in another essay how you will manage participating in a process, in a system that is not always safe for individuals who have experienced trauma and or oppression. And so we just want a very short, but to touch on that, right? That this is an intensive process, but also this is a training process that is about a system that sometimes we can't guarantee is safe. So that's one of the essays that, or paragraphs we'll be asking you to write. And then are there questions? So I do see there's a question in the chat about requiring employer approval. So to be frank, in order to learn the system, this requires an intensive amount of time, and that no person is able to do this program based on vacation or leave. And that also, as part of the strategy for the Women's Foundation, the Solís Policy Institute isn't just about our individuals, it's core, but it also is about the communities we are embedded in. And so that is part of the reason we want to have your employer supervisor approval, because we are training you to be a more powerful actor in your organization, in your community. And without that support, you won't be successful in this process. We have had people who are self-employed. I know a lot more people are consultants these days. And so we can confer with applicants who are in that different scenario. But that is part of both the practicality of doing this process, but also part of the mission of the foundation to impact both you as an individual from that community, from identities that are underrepresented in the capital, but also, again, the community, the organization you're embedded in. So for the next slide, we're talking about SPI issue areas. So we aim to feature teams working to address racism, anti-Blackness, cis heteropatriarchy, Within these areas of criminal justice reform is one issue area. Economic security is another issue area. Reproductive health, rights, and justice. And for this year only, we will have a team focused on sheltering survivors. So looking at the intersection of gender-based violence and housing. So you'll find the complete descriptions of these issue areas on our application page on our website. I do want to note that under each issue area, of course, there are sub-issue areas, right? Economic security is a very broad umbrella issue area, for example. So one is to remember that as we review applications, we will be also looking at applicants to hopefully make sure there's a team with some common threads under that umbrella area. So that's one of the lenses we look at. And then as a reminder that these issues are broad, and so you could end up with a bill that isn't a priority issue area for your organization. And that needs to be okay with your employer for you to have a viable and robust learning experience in this tight legislative timeline. Our goal, again, is to support you through the whole process so that you know how to get to the governor's desk, and those skills can be applied for future years, future issues, etc. So at this time, I just wanted to ask for the poll to be opened. We just want to ask if you can fill out the poll indicating what issue area you are likely to apply to do. We're just trying to do a temperature check. This is not a commitment. We're trying to collect the feedback to see how we're doing in our recruitment process. So Sinclair, if you can open that poll, and you'll see there are 4 issue areas, and if you can indicate which you plan to apply to. Again, this is anonymous. Again, this is not a commitment, but we do want to make sure we're touching our 4 issue areas. Thank you so much. I see 20 people have filled it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to talk a little more about the selection criteria, and then we'll go into the Q&A. So there is a selection committee that convenes in August to decide on finalists. Fellows will be selected through a competitive application process, and we'll select approximately 20 fellows in total. Applicants will be contacted by email by August 15th, 2024 to inform them of the committee's decision. Successful individual applicants will possess deep content knowledge that can be lived, learned, or from work, an ability to get along with others, how participating in the SPI will increase the policy advocacy work at your organization or in your community, a commitment to learning and full participation, and full support of your employer during and between retreats. And given how competitive the process is, we want to talk more about how we build teams, since teams are an integral part of the learning experience and the fellowship experience. So teams of 5 will have a diversity of experience and geographic representation across the state, diversity of backgrounds, and similar policy interests within each primary issue area. And we'd like to conclude by reminding you that we take many factors into consideration when selecting the fellows for each cohort, especially around team dynamics and what applicants, mentors believe will make the best team and have the most policy interest. And so if you're not admitted this year, please try again next year. We strongly encourage 2nd and 3rd applications because, again, it might just be that for this year the team isn't the right fit, but next year you could be a top candidate next year. Again, we only accept 20 people, so it is competitive, and we encourage you to reapply should you not get it this year. We're going to go into the Q&A right now, and I'll invite Stephanie back to respond. But I just want to say, if you have specific questions around your eligibility or a specific scenario or a work question, please email us at spi@womensfoundca.org, which you can find on your website, because we're happy to get on a call with you or talk more about it, because we know that there are unique circumstances. So please email us, because we know we're running short on time. So I want to make sure that we get, while we have Stephanie, get to answer this question that was asked, which was, do you ever feel imposter syndrome? If so, how did you overcome that challenge throughout the fellowship?
I don't know if I've ever felt that imposter syndrome, because, I've always been like really, I've been very like real, you know, and just upfront with my feelings. Like it's very hard for me to like hide really like what I'm feeling like if I disagree with something. But you know what? One thing about it is like you feel like maybe like you might not fit in, or maybe you feel like, hey, this is not what you agree with, or this is not your value, but you learn literally how to maneuver these situations, you know. You learn really like when you're in these places how to like find a good balance between still being you but understanding that there is a specific culture when you go into the capital or the swing space. Like you learn how to adapt, you know, because if you are new, like everybody knows, you know, there's certain things like if you're waiting for the elevator for 10 hours, you know, and they don't know, like, oh, okay, this person is new. They can just take the stairs. Everybody take the stairs, you know, like, or whatever, this and that, you know. But at the end, I just suggest being true to yourself, to your values, just being respectful. I really, really learned like I said, it's a very humbling experience. So you just learn how to respect um that much more like every person around you, because you just never know. Like we went into one office and we had no idea it was actually the assembly member. And we're over here and at first everybody's like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like we should have known, you know? But I really thought about it and I was like, I'm actually glad that we talked to him the way we did, because we talked to him like an equal, you know, like he wasn't like no one higher than us. We didn't talk down to him like he was just an office, you know, staffer, you know. We talked to him like real. And I think that he's seen that. And that assembly member, although he's very, very Republican, he chose when it came time to voting on the floor, he just chose not to vote. So he didn't go against us, but he just chose not to vote. So I think that it was pretty much amazing, like to be able to like be yourself, you know, and learn respect and just, you know, be very humble in these experiences. So yeah, if you feel imposter syndrome, just remember your values and remember you got SPI behind you. Remember you got your whole team with you and you should be okay.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to answer, there's a couple of questions around the same thread around time commitment and employers. And just want to clarify that the reason that we're asking for employers to sign on, right? And what we mean is for employers to be okay with you participating in SPI during your work hours, because there are going to be days, as mentioned, week-long retreats where you won't be at work, but you'll be at the retreat. Similarly, when you're at this engaged participating in seminars. And that goes to the question around what does 8 to 10 hours a week look like? What are we doing that during that time? So the legislative calendar is a very intense calendar that moves as fast as the speed of light at times. And so with your team, there's like 4 different phases, excuse me, and that's what the webinars line up for. But on the day-to-day, what that looks like, and again, sharing from my personal experience as someone who is working full-time at a local nonprofit and doing SPI state, what it means like is you have at the beginning in the first half where you need to meet with authors' offices. You need to do your research. So you're meeting with stakeholders, you're meeting with people in the work, you're setting up meetings and meeting with people really in the 9 to 5. You're meeting with your team and mentor weekly to learn more about what did everyone research? Is this where we want to go? And then you're going to start meeting with your authors. You need to start pitching your bills. Again, happening during work hours. And then you're also we have homework to help you along the way that needs to be done. And when you're in between, once you get a bill, you need to have committee hearings. You have to do prep during the committee hearings. You have to meet with the assembly members who sit on the committees, as well as the consultants. After you get through one committee, you might go through a second, or you need to start pivoting a strategy, right? You need to meet with your author's office regularly. And then from there, then you repeat the cycle in the second house. And if you make it, which goes until August, and after the second house, then you need to start meeting with people at the governor's desk. And so all throughout the process. Once you come in September, you're hitting the ground running all the way until the fellowship and the legislative calendar ends of the next September. So September 24 to September 25. You're doing a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a week. And some times, like when you're trying to find an author or when your bill is going to go to committee, it's more than 10 hours a week, right? And sometimes there are lower moments. And that's why it's important to have an employer who supports you to do that or understands, or you come to an agreement around that you need those 10 hours, minimum of 10 hours carved out while you're working, so that you can really get the most out of your experience, because really what you put into the fellowship is what you get out of it. And it's really important that you're able to be fully present throughout the process, and that these calendars and these deadlines are out of all of our control because it's a state process. And that's why we really want to support you all to do that, which is why we're asking you all to email us if you have specific questions. We can talk more in depth on what the day-to-day looks like, what the different phases look like, and really encourage you to apply, and talk more about what a support system could look like. And again, that's also why we have a team and not have everyone doing this individually, because we know life happens and you need to be able to lean on your team members during certain times of the fellowship experience. We are at 1 o'clock. I think we can stay on for a couple more minutes to ask any final questions, and then this recording will be up will be sent out, as well as the slides, and we do have our last week's webinar recorded up on our website. So Elizabeth, are there any final questions that you think we can take right now?
Yeah, I do want to say that for the person who's asking about setting their own schedule, which is similar to some of the applicants who we have had that are self-employed, to again email us, because again, it's about both the ability to do the fellowship, but also just our intent to pick a class that is embedded within a community, which sounds all potential for yourself. And then one of the questions I'd also like to answer with the limited time we have available is a question posed about recommendation for doing the application if you feel like you're more interested in one focus area, but you have experience in a different area. I would say to express both where you have experience and also have interest in growing, and that so maybe you select one issue area, and sometimes you can say in the narrative section, I also have experience with this other issue, and that how growing into this issue or new issue area will make my work or the organization's work more robust. There's also a question about LLC, which I know are businesses. So sometime what we mean community-based org is that you are interfacing with a community so that you have both informed experiences from the community you serve or represent, and also you have the capacity to speak on behalf, right, of a wider constituency. Part of the reason we want you at the Capitol, or folks at the Capitol, is to create policy that reflects the communities you come from, but you do not have to exactly be from a 501c3, although the majority of participants do have 501c3 organizations as their employer. In terms of the state versus local, currently local is not recruiting, and we are in the process of redesign, and so we don't have a set timeline for when local will reopen. But we do let folks know that state fellows do local, local do state. So I know it takes some time, but doing one program does not lock you out of the experience of another. And then the final question I want to just make sure we uplift is there's an anonymous question, I'm sorry. So your organization or you specifically do not have to already be experienced in policy or advocacy. We take a mix of people in their life or career trajectories. And that if your organization is not perhaps have a legislative policy shop, we definitely are interested in helping you become it and helping you gain those skills, and then also helping your organization gain those skills. So no policy experience is required. We are here to invest in you and the communities you reach, you touch, and serve. And so I think with that, I don't know if there's another question you want to answer, Janine. Just to repeat, we'll put the email in the chat as well. And you will be getting an email from us as well from the recording.
Thank you all again for your time. And just a reminder that the entire application must be completed and submitted online by 5 p.m. next Thursday, June 27th. Once you complete and submit the application, you'll receive an email confirmation of receipt. Interviews will be held July 22nd through August 2nd, so hold those dates. Not every applicant will be interviewed, and decisions will be released no later than August 15th. We encourage your application even if you don't have policy experience or even if you've never considered entering the policy field. Again, if you have any questions about the Solís Policy Institute, please refer to our FAQ on our website and contact us by email at spi@womensfoundca.org. Thank you all so much and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
And
Stephanie.
everybody apply.